right, sounds good.
Do you know that I can leave comments on your assignments that you turn in?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep, I did see that.
I appreciate that you're setting those in. This morning I actually used some of your work. We're going to go over some of the things that you said about sources of variation to talk about how those go. Actually distinguishing between common and special cause variation for some of the things that you listed is a good practice for us.
Okay,
So you gave me good material for this morning.
sweet.
How's your project going?
I think, I think it's going okay. So I didn't turn in, I have it somewhere. The, like how the morning meeting, the huddle thing will go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually starting it this morning.
Okay.
So be at 9. So then I will turn that one in.
Excellent.
I prepared that memo where we're actually supposed to do it. So.
Did you make any type of prediction about what you'll see as a result of doing your huddle?
I think so.
Okay.
From when I posted the flyers up in our cart rooms, everyone seemed to be excited and thought that would be a good thing. So we'll see how that goes.
I think I might have asked, is that a common way for you to communicate about a meeting? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always stick like a reminder up in our cart rooms, and then I'll go to them individually and just remind them of what we're planning on doing. So.
Okay. Good morning, Denise. Good morning, Joe. Yeah, okay, good. I'll be interested to see how that goes and see what you decided to use to evaluate how it went. Denise and Joe, have you had a chance to review our session from yesterday?
I watched part of it, not all of it. We got to see Megan talk, and Process, I think it's Megan, talk about state survey team a little bit, but we haven't gone through all of it. So I tried to do some of the work that I could, like the mistakes, whether it was a mistake or whether it wasn't. I couldn't get that. I mean, it looks like you did it as a group participation, but I did at least offer my answers that would have been individual to that assignment and uploaded it.
Okay. I don't think I saw it upload. I'll have to check again. I'll review again the grade book.
Okay.
We're going to talk some more about variation this morning. Good morning. This is Unit 105 from the IQI Academy of Leadership Fundamentals. We're going to be discussing psychology today. However, before we get into that, let's have a conversation about some of the things that we learned yesterday. And we talked about distinguishing between common and special cause variation. Do you, I know I'm probably unfair for either Denise or Joe, what are some of do you remember the definitions at all? In fact, you could pull them up from your materials if you have access to those from yesterday. What distinguishes common cause variation from special cause variation?
So the way I understood it was that common cause variation is a patterned problem, and you're looking for a solution to a common theme, where a special cause is a variation that's isolated. That maybe I read it wrong, but that's
yeah, that's very close. So common cause variation says that there's lots of little factors that cause the total variation. We used an example, for instance, of the commute to work. There's lots of little different variations that cause your commute time to vary from day to day, but it's never exactly the same because of things like stoplights, traffic, weather conditions. Those are all things that contribute to the total variation. But none of those causes significantly more, have a bigger impact than others. And that's kind of like what we have in our organizations. And all data are relevant for generating improvement. I mean, we need to look at how the entire system is producing or the entire process is functioning. And asking what happened when we have little ups and downs or ups and downs within what we see as common cause variation. Asking what happens is a low yield strategy and costly because we're chasing things that we shouldn't be chasing. And then, like you said, special cause variation is temporary or sporadically disturbs a process. And it's not always present, it comes and goes, and different special causes impact the process in different ways. Some with one data point, others many data points. So the example again in traffic is, an accident might be a big special cause for one day, and construction would be a special cause for many days that impact your commute. And it has, obviously, one cause has more pronounced effect than others. So yesterday when Megan was turning in her one of her variation assignments, she listed, here's other sources of variation that she experiences during her workday. And you might recognize some of these as well. Call-ins, policies, meetings, schedule changes, employee handbook, deadlines, and room changes. I have a question. One of my question is this list, which I want to place these in a column underneath common or special cause variation. When we go through call-ins, is that, when we're looking at it, are call-ins special cause or common cause? Are those sources common cause or special cause variation?
I think when you look at the building as a whole, unfortunately, and I'm assuming Megan's building is the same, we're 140 beds. Megan, I can't remember how big your building is. But we get call-ins every day. So if you look at it as a whole, unfortunately, it's a common cause of how we function every single day. But for housekeeping in particular, where there's smaller departments, which I think is Megan's role, if I remember right, and Joe's role, of course, too, as physical plant managers, it might be a little more special cause because it's not interrupting their daily workflow.
So say that again. I'm sorry, I was trying to do something here.
That's okay. I just it depends, I guess, when you're talking about how you function, if it's common cause or special cause. Unfortunately, in our building, we have 275 employees, 140 beds. We have a call-in pretty much every day. So we're already used to adapting and finding a workflow to happen when you look at the entire building every single day. So it's a common cause to how our workflow happens. If you look at our small departments that like Megan and Joe oversee, I don't know how it might be more special cause for them, because I think that if I look at what Megan listed, common cause for Joe's department over Collins is going to be room changes. We have everyday room changes that our social work drives in our building, and that's like interrupting your workflow every day. So you're having to look at that being a variant that you see constantly.
Right. So it's a great distinction. At the higher level in the system, some things will show up as common causes of variation, while at the individual level, it might show up as a special cause. Do you remember the example in the book of the young student timing the bus arrival times? I don't know if you remember that. His dad said he was trying to figure out when he should be out at the bus stop. His dad said, well, let's plot when the bus shows up. And he started plotting the arrival times of the bus from day to day. And he noticed that one day the door was stuck, and at every stop, the bus driver had to take extra time to open the door, and therefore the arrival time of the bus was late. So for Patrick, that was a special cause that day. But at the district level, there are multiple types of mechanical failures going on across all their buses. So that's kind of a distinction that might show up at one level, something might occur like that's part of our system. So call-ins are part of your system. That's what you're distinguishing, right? How about policies? Is that common cause or special cause sources of variation?
I would assume common cause.
I think so, common.
Yep, common cause variation. How about meetings?
we huddle, we use huddle, so that's common cause because you have that built into every single day. They're short, but
Yes. In fact, I've at this organization, I mean, across all the facilities, meetings are a really interesting aspect of organizational life that you guys have to deal with. How about schedule changes?
for Megan and Joe, I'm assuming that's really common. For me, it's more special cause. I'm not a very task oriented role. I'm more of a decision making role. So there's not a lot of changes in my schedule that I have to adapt to.
Okay. So Megan, when you were talking about schedule changes, what type of changes were you talking about?
Um, Sometimes I feel I will do our 2 week schedule for the housekeeping and laundry. And I will hand it out. And there's sometimes that as soon as you put that schedule out, you'll have 4 PTO slips that come in, and they're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot I have a doctor's appointment on this day, or
Right.
so then I will change the schedule, I feel like 4 different times.
So is
But
it a
it's
regular
not
occurrence, or is it pretty rare, or is it pretty regular occurrence that you're making schedule changes?
I would say it's common.
All right. So we're going to say common cause variation. For some reason, this isn't showing up as I'm doing it. I want to back out of this for just a second. All right. We'll see if that helps any. And then employee handbook. Does that create common or special cause sources of variation?
The majority of it common, I would think.
Yep, because that impacts everybody, correct? And what about deadlines? What did you mean by deadlines?
I guess I was kind of thinking of like our capital expenditure budgets. We have deadlines before the first of the year.
Okay.
If we need to add any of those.
And then do those ever change, or you're just saying that they exist and we have to deal with them?
They exist and you have to deal with them.
Okay.
And I didn't
And
know if
then-
anybody else had deadlines. I don't know.
And then room changes? That from an outside perspective, that seems like an ongoing regular occurrence, but I'm not sure if that's really the case.
I mean,
It's here.
Yeah, it's here.
Pardon me, say that again, Denise or
We
Joe?
have a lot of we have a lot of resident room changes. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty frequent occurrence for us. It definitely interrupts your daily workflow for
Okay.
housekeeping.
So we're gonna, Dr. Deming explained that when we're looking at the different sources of variation, different people in the organization are responsible for common cause versus special cause variation. And usually common cause variation is the result of how our system operates, and that's the responsibility of management. We're not chasing individuals. We can certainly see individuals show up within these, like for instance, call-ins, things like that. But as we deal with them, we want to look at, if we want to reduce them, we have to reduce them at the system level and not at individual level. So focus on process, not person, is one of the key things. So these were good examples. I appreciate you turning these in, Megan. That was helpful for us to look at that. Here's the learning activities that we have been focused on. We completed this work yesterday, or we should be caught up to that work. Today we're going to talk about psychology, and then of course we're focused on our move to improve, and I'm going to introduce or reintroduce the 14 points, but we're going to do an activity that's not due today but due next week, and it's a 14-point scoring grid. And what I'd like you to do is send me 2 to 3 times that will work for you on either Monday or Tuesday, so we can talk about your project. I'm driving back from Minnesota today to Michigan, and I'll be responding to our messages Saturday. So I'll be on the road as soon as we hang up, and so I won't be available. But so don't think I'm ignoring you. Just please send me some times that we can get together and have a conversation about what's next on your project, and continue making progress as we go through that. Rayanne and Danny, do those things make sense to you? Can you do that?
Yes, yes, we've had a lot of problems with our internet, so it's been down. So I will be trying to do it from home.
Okay. Oh, Danny, you're on camera. I thought we might miss you today, but
Yeah, no, I finally got it to log in.
excellent. Okay. So take a few moments today to take care of that. Send me some times. I really want to make sure that we have a conversation one-on-one, or if it's a group session together. For Denise and Joe, project work can be teamwork. The rest of the assignments, unless specified, are individual assignments. So these kind of things we can schedule together, but depending on your individual schedules, we can still meet separately, Joe and Denise, if that works better for your schedules. So here's some questions. I want to ask you about moves to improve, because we're using that terminology. I'm using that terminology. And I want to make sure that we look at an understanding of what we talk about. So when a move to improve is made, something out in the world changes. Something someone else can observe or respond to. And simple examples of a move might include the mock-up of a room layout, or even a sketch of a data collection form or a spreadsheet. So here's a question. When I hire 2 men in a truck to move me, which of these things is a move that I am hiring them to perform? So I'll give you the 3 options. So the first one is think about how heavy the boxes look. Have a meeting at the back of their truck to talk about all the boxes that I have. Or pick up 1 box from my living room and load it on their truck. What's a move to improve there?
See?
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's actually moving something, right?
Well,
Now,
the obvious, yeah.
Yeah, it's meant to be obvious. So
Right.
one of the things we have is, though, if you look at your question number 3 responses in your 3 basic questions, several of them are not like C. Many of them are more like A and B. So look at, when you talk about here's moves I can make to improve, look at what you're saying and saying, am I actually moving something, or am I just talking about it, thinking about it, asking questions about it? Those are not moves to improve. So surveys, interviews, those kind of things. So you might want to take those off your list of potential moves to improve and update your list with things that are actually things you can move. So again, when a move to improve is made, something out in the world changes, something someone else can observe and respond to. So when we talk about moving one of the things we're also talking about is we don't want to move big stuff. We want to make sure that we're moving things that are simple, something we can test, usually in a space of a day. So Megan, you're running a meeting today, a first-time meeting. That's a one-day test, especially if you're evaluating it based on something that comes out of that meeting or something that occurs immediately after. It'll be easy to observe the function of that. Now we also have this form, what's required for learning to occur. So when you look at this form, we have, obviously you're going to fill in your name and those kind of things. So the situation is, I've tested my move already. So I've done this, and it was intended to make an improvement. And before I made the change, I wrote down my prediction of what I expected to happen. And here's 3 possible outcomes. The first one is, my prediction is 100% correct. And everything I predicted happened, and nothing happened that I did not predict. Now that's a very rare situation. Very rarely are you going to do this. So I would be surprised if anybody says everything I predicted worked and nothing showed up that I didn't predict. So the question is, did I learn from this test? Well, the answer is no, but what I want you to fill out in this form is, why is no the answer? B is, my prediction was not 100% correct. Something I predicted did not happen. And did I learn? Yes. And I would like you to explain why yes is the answer here. And then finally, my prediction was not 100% correct. Something that I did not predict happened. So I thought this would be good. You know, Megan has her meeting. Nobody shows up to potentially, I mean, that might be, and maybe she didn't predict that. So something happened I did not predict. What did I learn? Explain why this is yes, I learned something in this situation. Okay, so that's how you fill out this form. Our group work is for PDSA cycles. All other assignments are individual. Denise and Joe, you fit in this category of partnering up on your projects if you want to. You're not required to, but you certainly can. And I have had people that have asked others in their department or organization to participate with them on their PDSA teams. So we can talk about that. If you think there's someone that's going to be there on a regular basis, we can work with you on having them participate. Today's topic is psychology. I'm going to run through some things that are might be a different perspective on psychology, so hang in there with me as we go through this. So first and foremost, our work is created, performed, and consumed by people. This is Dr. Deming's production viewed as a system, but we populate it with individuals. So everybody's doing something. And most of us, some of these colors are replicated throughout because most of us actually perform some of these functions. This is not an organization chart, but this is, hey, I might do work to deal with some suppliers. Other days I'm actually doing the work of my organization. And then other days I might be actually working with our residents, or gathering information. So there's this is not an org chart, but it's a representation of the work that's performed in our organization. And so of all the views that Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge provides, it's the lens of psychology that's a very critical one for leadership, effective leadership. Dr. Deming wrote, psychology helps us to understand people, the interaction between people and circumstances, between customer and supplier, and the interaction between teacher and pupil, between a manager and his people or her people, and any system of management. So Deming said the most important act a manager can take is to understand what is important to an individual. So Deming also described 4 boundaries that a leader or manager involved in transformation should learn about. And I'm going to use kind of a mini travel guide perspective, like there's regions or something. And we should think about, why should we go there? How do we get there? And what are the best places to visit? That kind of thing. And then also we're going to describe certain landmarks we might see, or look for landmarks that we might look for that we might see in different areas of the system of psychology. And so one of the first things that Dr. Deming said we should understand is the psychology of individuals. The psychology of a group is another area. The psychology of society. And then finally, the psychology of change. Those are 4 overlapping, interdependent, and also you can study these uniquely as well. So as we look at exploring the world of psychology, we have this we got different regions that we could describe this, and there might be boundaries between these, but they're kind of flexible. It's kind of like there's no visible boundary between Ann Arbor and Pittsfield Township, yet we behave as if there is one. There's a line on the map, and or there's one side is Canada, the other side is United States as we look across the river from Detroit, kind of thing. There's no such thing as lines in the natural world. And this realm of psychology, it may be actually easier to see some of these territories, but there's no actual boundary between these. There's just descriptions of things that maybe we can learn some things more or less as we think about these things as maybe individual areas of study. So as we study individuals, groups, society, and I would say organizations fit under society, and then the psychology of change, there's some different things we can learn about each one of those areas. So if we describe these things as boundaries, does anything come to mind as we talk about these different 4 areas that Deming specified? What are your thoughts? So what's going through your head right now as you're looking at this? You're struggling with something to come up with? What's the?
I was just thinking that the psychology of individuals is, for me, much different than a collective psychology of groups or society.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's people, individuals within those, but then there's something else that's going on. What's going on as we look at groups in society that's different than individuals? What's the primary difference there?
I think once you put individuals together as groups, their psychology influences each other, and they're impressionable by
Yeah,
each other. So
we
kind of,
we in, yeah, we influence each other. There's many places where Dr. Deming talks about usually figures that are unknown and unknowable, but there's also interactions between people that are sometimes not observed easily, but they certainly have an influence. So he said a leader of transformation and managers involved need to learn the psychology of individuals, psychology of a group, society, and change. And these boundaries, territories may appear artificial or invisible, and in the physical world, it's kind of the same. So we move on, and we also have in our world, as we go different places, we can see landmarks that show up and help us identify, oh, I know where I am. Like it's pretty easy for us to look at this and say, where am I? I know that landmark. I've been there, or maybe I've seen this landmark. Like, oh, okay, I know where that one is. Maybe I've crossed that one, and maybe I don't like driving on that bridge because it bothers me. Or this one, that's a famous, Devil's Tower, is another one of those. Like I know where I am when I see this landmark. So there's some aspects of the landmarks in psychology that are possible for us to begin to look at and say, what's the environment we're living in or existing in, and these are different landmark that Dr. Deming actually brings up and talks about throughout his work. One is interactions between people and circumstances, and he listed several of them: manager and their people, and any system of management. Now, typically we look at a picture like this, and this is what we see. And what do we see here? Usually it's just we see the individuals, but what's really happening that's critical here are what are the interactions that are occurring not only between individuals but also between groups of individuals. And that's an important aspect for us to pay attention to, is what are the interactions that are occurring, not necessarily what are individuals doing by themselves. Another key landmark is, do we observe or notice, are we in the presence of learning? Now, what would be an alternative to a group that's learning? What are they doing if they're not learning? What are they doing?
Probably gossiping.
Gossip, yes. Could be. We could be gossiping, yep. Or we could just be doing things day after day and not even questioning, hey, can I get this better? Can I learn something about it? Like, yeah, And gossip is just based on what I currently know. And then Dr. Demme also called out relationships. Love and esteem by others are vital to our psychological well-being. We've seen studies where babies, if they're raised without some kind of love and affection, have some severe emotional issues later on in life. So what makes it possible for us to see this landmark? How do we know that there's esteem present or love present in our relationships?
Respect.
Yeah, that's actually an element of several other things we have. But yeah, we show respect for each other.
Investing time in each other.
Kindness, yep. Yeah, that's an important aspect of this.
I was saying investing time in each other because I feel like professionally, especially, that's the way to show that you're coming from an administrative standpoint, that you're invested in the person then.
Yeah, it's one of the rare things that we can actually offer people that's kind of for free. We don't treat it like it's free, but it's precious. And when we give people our time, that's a very special acknowledgement of they're important to us, and we esteem and appreciate them. Now, dignity is the quality of being worthy of honor and respect, and a sense of pride in oneself and self-respect. So the presence of dignity in our organizations is important. And I'm thinking that also relates well with the residents that we're working with, being able to have people that they can live with dignity in their space. Now, what do you see when you see curiosity? If it's present in your organization.
Questions, people asking questions, really engaging. And I think you bring up a good point when you bring up the resident, because the first slide that you show, that's exactly what came to my mind is, okay, we have these relationships between management and their people, but I was like, how do I make a diagram that shows these good relationships will have a positive effect on the residents? So maybe we should put the resident in the middle and then put these other, different things, the learning, all these different things around the resident. In other words, we should have lines from resident to these different types of interactions.
Yeah. Yeah, and those interactions, I think, as you're describing them, can be positive or negative as far as how we work with each other and then how they influence and interact with our residents. So again, we have questioning, we have, when curiosity is present. Is there an age at which curiosity diminishes or is extinguished?
Not for me.
There doesn't have to be, and yet traditionally we see that the youth are very invested in curiosity. They're exploring the world like crazy. They're asking, how does this happen? My grandson used to run around our space and say, well, let's do an experiment. Let's see if this works. Let's see what happens with that. On and on, there's this exploration desire for that. And at some point, sometimes we don't exhibit our curiosity quite as much. But Rayanne, like you said, some of us are continually curious. I want to keep learning. I want to see what happens here.
Well, there could be consequences for curiosity too, at some level or in some age. Because it comes off as, okay, you're questioning me, or the person. And so I think that when youngsters do it, you just chalk it up to, they don't have the experience. You know what I mean? They're just being, inquisitive or whatever. But, I think, like you said, when people get older, then if you're curious or you're questioning these, some of the people that, are considered older, they might take offense to it.
Right. Yeah, they make that question mean something. They attach meaning to it when they don't need to, rather than,
right.
I mean, if you're the one being questioned, you can just say, oh, I think that person's just being curious, rather than he or she's trying to poke at me or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Trust is a very important aspect and invisible thing that we experience in our organizations. However, what do you experience when trust is present? What actions do people take when trust is present?
I think when trust is present, there's more a feeling of stability among the community. I think when there's distrust, that's when, I think Denise may have said it, gossip, just all the negativity. And I think it creates a new culture if there's not trust there, a not so good culture.
I got it. Yeah. So trust is an important landmark for us to look at. Motivation is another one. There's three characteristics that we'll spend more time in the psychology unit talking about: collaboration, choice, and challenge. When those three are present, motivation can't help but be present. If you eliminate any one of those, motivation starts to disappear. So when you think about building looking at the psychology of motivation, we can look at these elements and say, are these things present in people's work, in their jobs, in their daily activities? Joy in work. Deming wrote about joy in work. Suppose that we post names on figure 6, meaning the production views as a system diagram, so that everybody may see straight away what his job is, whom do I depend on, who depends on me. Anyone may now understand that his or her work fits with the work of other people. They may now engage their mind as well as their labor. They understand now what is meant by doing a good job. They may now take joy in their work. So that's a very interesting perspective on joy in work, knowing who depends on me and who do I depend on, and knowing that my job makes a difference allows you to have joy in work. So when we design our work structures, we want to make sure that people are aware of, these are the people that depend on you, and this is why. And then here's actions a manager can take. That Deming said, the 14 points all have one aim. It's possible for people to work with joy. And he taught that there's several actions that managers could take that help produce this. I'm going to run through these fairly quickly, so look at the screen as they go by. Managers can explain the aims of the system. They have awareness of people's differences to optimize abilities and inclinations. They understand people are different from one another. This is not ranking. Understand what is important to an individual. Praise, respect, support for improvement. Nurture the inclination to learn. Help people maintain dignity, self-esteem, and intrinsic motivation. Appreciation for people. Provide coach and counsel. Listen and learn without judgment. So these are very important actions that a manager can take. And we look for that in our world of psychology. Is that present in is that a landmark that we see and appreciate? There's also this element of warning signs. We want to make sure that we don't see these things in our environment. Fear, extrinsic motivation, ranking, competition, judgment, self-defense, and forces of destruction. Those are all things that start to limit our interactions, destroy trust, and remove motivation in our workplace. Now, we've been discussing this. There's some other things we need to cover, so I'm not going to do a breakout with these activities. But certainly they should show up in your conversation as you do teach to learn conversations today. You might want to focus on, when we talk about psychology, not just the areas of psychology, but the landmarks that we just covered as you do your teach to learn conversation today. Here, I want to cover this assignment on the 14 points that we're going to be doing. It's due Tuesday, and it's with you and 2 other people in your organization. So Denise and Joe, this is an individual assignment. So it's each of you will find 2 different people to work with on this. And there's 3 forms that you have that you can pull down from the learning management system. You're going to ask 2 other people to fill it out. Then you're going to discuss the differences that you have for understanding, not to arrive at a same score or an agreement about how you see things in the organization, but to have a conversation about, well, what is it I see that's different from what you see? And difference means not exactly the same score on any particular item. And when you submit the file names, they're numbered 1, 2, 3. Your name is in the file name itself. In the form, and I'll pull up the form here, the form itself has a place for the person who's filling out the form.
Can I get some help in 7-1?
To put their name. So on this form, I'll make it smaller for a second. Let's get rid of this. There's a place here for your organization, so just put your location. Here is where you'd put the person who's filling out the form puts their name in it. And then for each of the 14 points, you can score it. So for instance, constancy of purpose, you're going to score it either 0. So and in the columns, you put either the number that you have or 2. And it says, wait a minute, you can't put 2 scores in a row. So I'm going to cancel that. Maybe I'll delete this one and say, you know what, I think for constancy of purpose, and I don't know if can I blow this up so you see? Yeah. So when you roll your mouse over the cell that has a definition here or a rating scale, it has an explanation for what each of these might mean. So if I say, well, there's a lot of mobility and management, we continue to change and it contributes to problems, I could put 4 in that and it'll score that. And you'll score this for each of the rows. So all it is 1 score in each. Here, I'll lower this down a little bit. In fact, I'll go back to our screen because we have that kind of a view. So you notice also the bar chart. So I'll just put some numbers in. So 6, I'll just say 4, 2. We might be doing really well on this one, 8. And you see the bar chart grows and the count of each one. These are automatic. So as nobody has to fill in anything over here, all you're doing is rating, here's how we're doing, like on Drive Out Fear. It might be that we're not very, very good at this. Employees are afraid to appear ignorant or ask about procedures. Or maybe we're really good at this and everyone's working effectively. There's mutual trust, confidence. And so I'll say, all right, for us, we're over here like that. So whatever those scores are for you and for your partners, you're going to, oops, that one's a 0. Fill these out, okay? And so on. So let me go back to our slides. So we'll fill this out, discuss your differences, and basically what you're doing is 1 score per row, and every row has at least some kind of score in it. Again, the totals get totaled up automatically and there's a score. But anytime there's a difference between your score on one of the points and someone else, one of your partners, you want to talk about that and say, well, what do I see? And frequently you'll notice, my prediction is you'll have several scores that people are slightly different. So for the Tuesday Teach to Learn conversation, this might be the topic of your Teach to Learn conversation, is what do we get when we talked about this, okay? So our assignments for today are a Teach to Learn on psychology, your Move to Improve notes, and again, please schedule some office hours with me so we can talk about your project. I want to make sure that we're progressing in the way that you want to. Please keep adding to your Theory of Knowledge mind map. Danny and Megan, that was great that you sent me images of your mind map beginning already. That's great. Again, they're only due at the end of each unit, but I appreciate you sharing what you've put together so far. And then this one, again, your last name is the one on the file name. So all you're doing is replacing your last name in each file name and saving it and letting you or your partner fill in on the worksheet who actually is the person doing the rating. And then finally, plan your next move to improve. And we'll talk more about that on Monday's session. So again, schedule your office hours with me. These Move to Improve notes are basically, hey, here's the move I made. Here's how it went. So today, for instance, Megan, after your meeting, you can talk to me about that. I mean, you can write this down and record it. And then what you learned. So that's an important aspect of this, because The whole intent of any one of our move to improve, and then we're going to be calling it plan, do, study, act cycles next week. Any one of our plan, do, study, act cycles is learning, because learning precedes improvement. If you didn't need to learn, you guys should all be doing the improvement right now, right? So it's like, okay, there's something here to learn. We don't know what that is yet. So let's start running some tests. I think I screwed up my here, I'll fix this. I'll just delete this for a second. Oops. So describe the move you made and what it was intended to produce. Describe how it went, and then what you learned by comparing your documented prediction with actual results. Remember, if it's not documented ahead of time, it really doesn't count as a prediction. You can't go around and say, oh, I knew that, like after the fact. Here's our theory of knowledge quotes for today. Dr. Deming said, experience without theory teaches nothing. In fact, experience cannot even be recorded unless there is some theory. This is really fascinating, but it might be challenging for us, but this is how we work. So some theory, however crude, that leads to a hypothesis and a system by which to catalog observations. Sometimes only a hunch, right or wrong, is sufficient theory to lead to a useful observation. And then he also said, actually, the only safe use of experience is to perceive and to formulate questions and to predict the losses and gains from various decisions that are possible. All right, thank you very much. We do have a couple more minutes if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, send me your schedule for Monday and Tuesday, or 2 or 3 time slots that work for you. And I hope you have a very good weekend.
I have a question about the grids.
Yes.
Are they filling out an e-copy or just a paper copy, and then we're populating the data?
No, the file that you have to download is the Excel spreadsheet. So have each person fill out the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, so their own.
They're on the LMS. Yep. So you can download 3. You'll download those 3 files. Save them with your name under 1, 2, and 3, but then give 2 and 3 to the people that you're asking to fill it out, and have them open the Excel form and enter the numbers like I showed you, just 1 number per row, and they can have an explanation of each item they're scoring by just rolling their mouse over that cell, and that explanation will pop up, and they can say, oh yeah, that's how we're operating under this point. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything
So then
Yep.
they would just like say, I'll use Mandy for example, Danny. Like I have Mandy be one of the people that fill it out. She would fill it out as like her department or like Oakview itself.
You guys are looking at the entire facility, so Oakview itself.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is not departmental level work. This is this is facility level work.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a good question. Thank you. That's good.
Okay.
All
I
right.
wasn't sure if it was like department or if it was like the whole facility itself.
Yeah, the whole facility.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you Monday. Bye.
Bye.